Hey, what's up, guys? Clunky here. Hope you guys are doing super well, and welcome to my no BS Shadow Priest guide for beginners in Dragonflight. All right, have you guys seen those ghosts? That was pretty cool, right? Today, I will be covering up how to deal damage as a Shadow Priest, what you need to know, the basic stuff. And I'm actually gonna include some macros, some secret text, so you might want to be checking it out until the end because it's pretty good just to increase your fun overall with this spec. All right. So Shadow Breeze deals damage with dots, damage over time effects. Okay, so you don't get that much like burst damage as a Shadow Priest, but you got some ways to do it. The main way to deal damage with Shadow Priest, as you might know or not know, is to apply Vampiric Touch in Shadow Word Pain. Alright, Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch, as you guys see on the target dummy. Right, if you guys want to get this add-on, it's called Big Debuff on CurseForge. It's free and it's pretty fun because it allows you to see which targets is under the influence of your dots. As you guys see, I'm using Devouring Plague. I see if my target is actually affected by my dots or not. Right. All right, so before we move on, I'm just going to talk a little bit about your mastery. Your mastery as a Shadow Priest is called Shadow Weaving. What it does, basically your damage is increased by 4.5% each of Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Blade on a target. Okay, so what that means is the more dots you've got on your target, the more damage you are gonna deal on the target, alright? So, the main ways to apply dots on a target, as I've explained a little bit, is to use Vampiric Touch and Shadow Word Pain. Okay, you've got like 2 dots, so basically you are dealing 4.6% plus 4.6% more damage on your target. So roughly, let's say around 10% more damage, alright? So all of your next spells are going to deal like almost 10% more damage. Now we added Devouring Plague, so that's another 4.6% more damage that you're going to deal on your target, alright? So if you add all of your dots and then you use, how is it called? Mind Flay, you are now going to hit kind of okay damage now with Mind Flay. But if you use Mind Flay on a target without dots on it, it's gonna hit for very little damage. But again, we were hitting for 7Ks. We're gonna apply more dots again, and then we're gonna use Mind Flay. Mind Flay hits for 10Ks. It crits. It hits a little bit harder, right? So mastery is not the most important part about Shadow Priest, but I felt like it was pretty important to talk about it. Most of the time, Shadow Priest's damage comes from a lot of haste, okay? Your haste increases the rate at which your dots are gonna tick, so you need a lot of haste. On every piece, everything, okay? That's very important for PvP, PvE, you need haste, right? So I know it might be tedious to always apply Vampiric Touch on everything, because like, I'm gonna show you. It's pretty long to put Vampiric Touch on everything. It's super time consuming. It takes a lot of freaking time, right? Like you need to cast it, and it makes it like a little bit tedious to always try and put Vampiric Touch on everything. But there's something that actually allows you to do it very easily, and it's called Misery. Misery, that's a talent, by the way, in your talent book that you can choose. Vampiric Touch actually applies Shadow Word Pain to the target. Shadow Word Pain lasts an additional 5 seconds. So if you use that talent, it's gonna make it like way easier to tag multiple targets. Okay, because it's gonna apply Shadow Word Pain every time you use Vampiric Touch on someone, okay? See, we got 2 curses on this guy, 2 dots basically, right? So, the next step is gonna be Shadow Crash. Shadow Crash with this talent, Whispering Shadows. You actually need this talent, okay? It's super good. And Shadow Crash, what it does, it applies Vampiric Touch up to 8 targets, all right? And I don't know why it does that, but it actually works with Misery, okay? So now, when you will use Shadow Crash, okay, I'm gonna use Shadow Crash on those 5 targets. I'm using Shadow Crash now, all right? Boom! Your dots on all are all your dots are on all 5 targets in 1 second, alright? So you kind of need to use Shadow Crash. It's pretty good. And believe it or not, that is part of the secret tag that I wanted to talk about. I'm going to include in the description a macro which is actually going to let you use your Shadow Crash a lot faster than you are supposed to, alright? So usually what happens, you target Shadow Crash, you need to put it on your targets to activate it, and you need to re-click on the ability to land it, alright? No more. Now when you are going to put your cursor on your target and you're going to press my macro, it's going to throw a Shadow Crash one shot. So you might want to check down in the description. I'm gonna link that macro. It's super good because like it saves you a little bit of time on top of making you avoid like clicking on mobs in just really it should be baseline in World of Warcraft. I don't know why they made it so you had to re-click the ability on the ground. I think it is pretty lame, but at least you've got my macro. So check down in the description. All right, one last tip for applying as many Vampiric Touches and Shadow Word Pain as possible is going to be Unfurling Darkness. What it does, after casting one Vampiric Touch on a target, your next Vampiric Touch within 8 seconds is going to be instant cast and deals more damage, alright? So we're going to use Vampiric Touch on this target. Boom! Our dots are applied, and then we're going to hit Vampiric Touch again. Boom! That's instant. We're going to turn around, Shadow Crash, boom! So we've got a bunch of targets like with dots on them. It makes it a lot more fun to play Shadow Priest, okay? I wish someone told me those tricks when I started playing Shadow Priest, alright? Right, so the next step of this beginner's guide is going to be about your resource. Your resource is called Insanity. Insanity is the purple bar that you see at the bottom of my name. Okay, there's my health, 421k, and there's my freaking insanity. Insanity is what allows you to deal a lot of damage. When you got no insanity, you deal 0 damage, alright? Almost. So the way we can build a lot of insanity fast, very, very fast, is to actually get as many Vampiric Touch as possible on as many targets as possible. So, you know now why I've spent like 5 minutes talking about Vampiric Touches and how to apply them to as many people as possible, as fast as possible, because you're gonna need it. You're gonna need a lot of insanity to deal as much damage as possible, right? So the way you spend your insanity, pretty simple. You use Devouring Plague. Devouring Plague, sorry, deals a ton of damage. Okay, first off, it heals you, so it's pretty good. You need that spell. It's super good. So we're gonna like just spend all of it We're gonna like speed run this, spend all of my insanity on this pet, on its target dummy. It deals quite a lot of damage and it heals me, which is super good. All right, so I'm gonna show you now how I'm doing it to tag as many targets as possible, and hopefully, if you can apply it to your gameplay, you're gonna have a ton more fun. So Vampiric Touch, Shadow Crash, Vampiric Touch Instant, Vampiric Touch. You can always tab target the mobs. If you don't know what tab targeting is, you actually need to get it. See, now that all of our targets are under the influence of our dots, we can now use Mind Flay. Okay, Mind Flay actually gives you a bit of insanity, and when your Vampiric Touches actually like damage your enemies, it gives you a bunch of insanity. Okay, Maddening Touch. You will most likely pick up this talent to play Shadow Priest. It's pretty good. I think most Shadow Priests actually play with this talent, like 90%. I wish it was just baseline. It's pretty dumb that we need to spec into it. So, Vampiric Touch deals 30% additional damage and has a chance to generate 2 insanity each time it deals damage, alright? So, we are getting all of our stacks on everything, like applying our dots, shower pain, everything on as many targets as possible. And then what you want to do, you want to dump everything into Devouring Blade. Everything. So now that's when you are dealing insane amounts of freaking damage. Have you guys seen those ghosts? By the way, those ghosts are dealing a lot of damage. And so now you know the basics about Shadow Priests. Okay, if you want to get as much freaking insanity as possible, you need to dot a lot of people, as I've told you. So the more people that you actually are able to dot, the faster you will build your insanity, right? So I'm just gonna show you something very neat in a couple of seconds, right? There's one talent that allows you to get more insanity faster, and it's called Idol of Situn. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly. I'm kind of confused on how I'm supposed to say it, right? So again, I'm going to just show you basically what Shadow Priest does and how to maximize your damage as a Shadow Priest. And I might do a more in-depth guide for Shadow Priests. If you like this guide, let me know down in the comments section. I'm just going to show you real quick what the full burst on a Shadow Priest looks like, okay? I'm going to focus on these targets over here, those Cleave Dummy and this PP Dummy, alright? So, again, applying Vampiric Touch, Shadow Crash, and then we are pumping Void Eruption. We're spending our Devouring Plague, Void Bolt, we're using Void Torrent, Void Bolt, using another Devouring Plague, and now we're pumping insane freaking damage, up to 400k DPS, okay? We forgot to use Shadow Fiend. What Shadow Fiend does, it actually does very little damage, but it actually gives you a lot of insanity, man. This cooldown is pretty good. It gives you a lot of insanity, allowing you to use a lot of freaking Devouring Plagues in a row. And you kind of need to never forget about it. And also, Shadow Crash is very useful to keep your targets with Vampiric Touch on them, right? So it's pretty insanely fast how you can build your insanity with this little trick right there. Alright, so we're just gonna reapply our dots, and then we're gonna build a lot of insanity by just pressing Mind Flays. And if our talent, Idol of Ceton, procs, is gonna create on the ground little tentacles, which are gonna actually build a lot, like this one right here. It's actually building a lot of insanity, right? So now, I think the only thing that I can talk about Shadow Priest is the CC. Shadow Priest has 3 sources of CCs in the game, allowing you to control mobs. It's pretty fun because you can actually like silence a mob, which is casting an ability, and then you can stun him. And then finally, what you can do is you can fear them. Okay, fear is actually an AoE spell. It's gonna fear everything around you in maybe 10 yards range, so it's pretty short, but it's actually super good. All right, so hopefully, guys, enjoyed. Check down in the description. Gonna include the macro there. Also, I've got a bunch of super insanely good one-shot builds for every character in World of Warcraft. So thanks a lot for watching. Hope you guys have a lot of fun playing your Shadow Priest, and catch you in the next one, gentlemen. Please hit the subscribe button. Take care.